Hello crafty friends, this is Jen and thank you for joining me today. Today I have a fun Halloween card for you which uses several of Karen Burniston's great Halloween themed dies. I'm going to start by making my card base, which I used a very lightweight black cardstock and cut it 11 by 5.5 so that the card was 5.5 by 5.5. And I'm just folding it in half and then making sure that my crease is very flat, going over it with my bone folder. I recently picked up 2 really great pattern paper packs from Michael's up in Canada here. They currently are on sale, buy one get one free. So I was definitely going to take advantage of that deal. So I did cut 2 squares from this pattern paper, 1/8 of an inch smaller than my card base. So it would have a little bit of a black border around it. I'm just using double-sided adhesive tape to go around the edges. And this is my favorite double-sided tape. And I can get it in bulk on eBay, which is really helpful. And it lasts me like years because you get so much of it. And I usually prefer the 1/5 of an inch, but this is 1/4 because I ran out of 1/5. And I'm just going to adhere that to my card base. And I put this in the white part of my glass tabletop because I was having a hard time seeing to keep it straight. So while I was at Michael's, I also found this really great double-sided paper. And it's like thin paper, which you need when you're making an explosion card. And what I'm using here is the explosion pop-up die that Karen Burniston has. And I already folded 1/2, and I'm just going to show how to fold the other half. She has a really great instructional video and shows you how to fold this a little slower if I'm going just a little too fast. I do speed it up so that the videos aren't too long. But the first fold down the center is a mountain fold. And then your second fold is a valley fold. And the nice part about this is it will fold down. Some of it will fold down just automatically. And then you just go like from the center fold, you just do mountain, valley as you go up each side of the explosion pop-up die piece that you've cut out. And I just saw this paper and thought, oh, I have to make a card with it. It looks so cool. And it's a really nice feeling paper. It almost kind of reminds me of magazine, like magazine paper. I don't know what you'd call that, but it has that feel to it. It was really, really nice. It wasn't on sale, but the paper pads were. So I'm just folding this up, and like I said, if you would like to see how to do this, Karen Burniston has a really great instructional video on her YouTube channel, and she takes it step by step, goes a little slower, and then shows you how to fold that. But once they're folded, they go into the card along the sides of the card, and then when you open the card, it's like an explosion. So I'm just going to use my glue, and I like to use Lineco neutral pH adhesive, and I have a fine tip bottle that I use with this glue, and this glue is really, really good. So I highly recommend it. And that's also something that you can get at KarenBurniston.com. And if you want a bigger bottle, she sells smaller bottles, but if you really like it and you want bigger bottles, you can get bigger bottles at Amazon. Just be very careful what time of year you order it, though. I ordered it in wintertime one time, and when I went to use it, it had gone funny. It's not good in the cold. So if you're in Canada like me, get your glue ahead of time. Because once winter hits, it's cold up here. So I'm just putting these explosion pop-up pieces in, and I just line them up with the center fold of my card and along the side. And what I'm doing is lining them up along the patterned paper, and then just holding that in place, and then I'll glue the other half and then fold the card down. This explosion pop-up is so, just like all her other dies, a lot of them just could be used for anything. Birthday, anniversary, thank you. And I just wanted to do something because I love making Halloween cards. So this piece that I'm folding now is the Lorna label. And what I did was I die cut the Lorna label from a very lightweight black cardstock because I wanted to add pieces onto it. And I didn't want to make the card too bulky. So I used a very lightweight, I think it's 65-pound black cardstock. And I took the next size die down in the Lorna label set and cut the center out of this because I want to add a charm to dangle from the inside. So I'm just making sure that that fits because I wasn't really sure. This was a first for me. I hadn't done this before and I wanted to just make sure that everything fit properly. So I decided I wanted to add like a centerpiece. When you use the explosion pop-up, it has a piece that you would cut a 3x6 center panel and you would add that into the center. But before you add it, you die cut the pop-up mechanism into the center. And even though I wasn't using that, I still wanted to add that patterned paper section in the middle just to give it a little something. And to kind of cover up those little edge pieces on the explosion pop-up. So I went through the paperback that I got and I found this really cool pumpkin paper. And I know you can't tell, but it does kind of shimmer. And so because you have that line where your explosion pop-up and the centerpieces meet with the background paper, I wanted to do a border. So I got out Karen Burniston's Halloween borders. And at first I was going to use the bones, but it didn't look right. So I decided to go with the skulls. And here I've put the die over top of my die cut and I'm just using a fine tip black pen to color in the eyes and the mouth on my skeleton, or on my skulls, sorry. And I just kind of sped this up because it did take a bit. Now, once I have that done, I'm going to line it up and then I'm going to trim the edges just a little bit so that it will fit closer, because it doesn't fit up because of the explosion pop-up and it hangs over the edge. And I didn't want it to hang over, so I'm just drawing little lines where I need to trim, and then that will fit snug right over that paper line, which turned out perfect. So I'm just going to glue this down. And again, this is where that fine tip bottle just makes life so much easier. And I'll just press that down and make sure that it's good and straight. And then I'll do the same thing for the top half. So I did die cut a second skull border and I'm going to do the same thing again. Coloring in the eyes and the mouth or nose. Just to make the whole skull pop out more. And I really love the Halloween borders. There's bats and there's bones and skulls and pumpkins. They're really great. I highly recommend them if you're like me and you like making Halloween cards. And I never used to like making Halloween cards, but I just love it now. So much fun. So again, I'm just going to line that up. And then I'm going to glue that in place. And it just kind of adds just a little bit extra to your cards. And Karen has some really great border dies. And, you know, she's got them for Easter. She's got them for like tea and coffee, for pies, baked goods, Christmas. So really you could use those borders with the explosion pop-up for any kind of card. So here I cut out a piece of glittery black cardstock, and this is pretty heavyweight black cardstock, and I'm just trimming out the pieces that I don't need from the Lorna label. And I'm making this border to go around the perimeter of the Lorna label. But really what it also is going to do, it's like a two, it adds dimension, but it's also going to hold my ghost in place. And for the ghost, I used this, it's supposed to be like invisible thread. It's just like almost like fishing line, but it's a little thinner. So I am adding the face of my ghost. And again, just like the skulls, I'm just using a fine tip black pen. And I'm just going to add a little detail to my ghost. And I decided he needed some rosy cheeks. So years and years ago, when I first started scrapbooking, which I haven't done forever, I bought this thing of chalk. And I didn't use it for years, and I found recently I've been using it. And it lasts forever. It's pretty handy. So I'm going to place this into position, and this was kind of finicky because that invisible thread is not like regular thread. It's almost like plastic, so it didn't want to stay still. So eventually it was like, that's it, I'm getting my tape. I'm taping it down. In hindsight, I should have taped the Lorna label piece down too, and I would definitely do that next time. And I'm sorry that it's a little off camera here. And then I'll re-glue my glitter piece and then add that on. And then that will secure the ghost in place and add some sparkly dimension to our Lorna label. So I'm just going to make sure I push that down really good. And it kind of pulled my ghost up, but it was still, the glue hadn't set, so I was able to move the ghost down to where I wanted him. And then I realized, well, if he spins around, I need a ghost on both sides. So I die cut a second ghost. But the problem is that in order to make him backwards, I had to kind of place the die as best I could onto the die cut. It's not centered, but it will do for like the backwards ghost. And again, just doing the same thing so he looks the same on both sides. And for that, I'm just using a white jelly pen size 10. I really like the size 10 ones. I find that I don't have, they constantly come out really, really white all the time. Where I find sometimes the smaller jelly pens, you have to use them a few times to get it to be good and solid. So there's our little ghost. Now the ghost comes from Karen Burniston's Halloween Charms. And that's another little great die set that has all kinds of different Halloween charms that you could use to dangle in cards or just add to your cards. So I'm going to place the Lorna label inside my card, and that one center line lines up with the center of the card. And I'm just going to add glue to these two little tabs, and they go in first. And I kind of had a hard time. I was like, I don't want to get glue on my fingers again, but then I was just like, I'll forget it. I'm putting glue all over my hands. So I got those little tabs down, and I'm just holding them in place. And now I'm going to glue the top and bottom tabs and then secure them in place. And again, Karen has a instructional video on how to use the Lorna label. So if you find that this is going a little too fast and you want to learn how to use the Lorna label and insert it in the card, you can always refer to her great instructional videos. And I didn't let this glue set and my bottom popped up. So what I did was I placed it and then I kind of pushed it down just a bit and popped out one side of my explosion pop-up and used my bone folder to kind of hold it in place, and then pushed it down and gave it a good push, and then that time it set in place. So don't be in a rush. And when you open it, just open it slowly the first time. So I wanted to make a little stamp sentiment to go on the front of the Lorna label. And I realized I should have put this in before I put the Lorna label in. And I used this really great removable adhesive dots to secure my stuff in my Misty. And I used Lawn Fawn's little Halloween characters. It had a really great little sentiment that I thought would be perfect for the card. And at first I was going to heat emboss it, and then I was like, you know what? No, I'm just gonna use black ink. So I kind of rubbed that powder off and then stamp my sentiment. So now I can add that to my card. And it just goes right onto the little front panel there of the Lorna label. Karen Burniston does have really great sentiment stamps that she's just come out with. So I'm hoping that maybe in the future we get Christmas and Halloween and different ones, because they're really, really perfect. So that with that done, I decided I want to put something in the card. And I was like, hope your Halloween is, great, awesome. Oh, you know what? Spooktacular. So I got out Karen Burniston's alphabet dies and mini alphabet and numbers dies. And from the alphabet dies, I die cut the word spook. And then the tacular, I used the smaller mini alphabet. And for this, I used a gold glitter cardstock with black background just to make that word spook pop. And then for the tacular, I used the black glitter cardstock that I used for the front of the Lorna label. And I'm just making the black background off center just a bit so it looks like it's got a shadow around it. And I'm just kind of figuring out the placement for the inside of the card. And where I want that to go. So I realize that I need to move it up just a little bit so that I can fit tacular. And I wanted the tacular to be in the orange pumpkin background part. And I'm just gluing these down. And then I'm going to use my craft block to hold them in place until the glue sets, sorry. And we got that glued down now. So for the word tacular, my advice is to start with the first letter and the last letter, and then you have an idea of how much space you have left to fill it. So then it stays kind of centered to where you want it to be. So I placed the T, and then I placed the R, and then so that I knew that, I was giving it around the same amount of space as the front to the back. And then I know how much space I have in the center. And then I just go letter by letter until I get to the center letter. Eventually, I did have to move the A and the other A a little bit closer. And if you want it to be perfectly straight, you could always use a ruler or even a piece of cardstock that's good and straight. But given that it's a Halloween card, it doesn't have to be super straight. Gives it that, haunted look. We'll go with that. And then we'll just put that last letter in. And then our sentiment is done. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the top and bottom. Obviously, the bottom, I wanted to have a place that you could sign the card, but there was all this space at the top that I wanted to fill. So I used Karen Burniston's Halloween elements and Halloween. Um, oh, I'm very sorry. I drew a blank there. It's the Halloween. Like it's like a background themed die, and it's a Halloween scene. I'm so sorry. So I used the Halloween scene and the Halloween elements to die cut the cobwebs and the ghosts. And these ghosts are a little different than the little ghosts that I used as the charm. For the cobweb, I used a white glitter cardstock. And it was one of these, it was like a paper pack you could get at Michael's. I don't see it there now. But hopefully they bring it back because I really liked it. And I'm just going to place the cobwebs in the center. And a little bit is going to hang over, but I'm just going to trim that. And I'm just going to use my little plastic stamping block to hold that in place until the glue sets. And while that's happening, I can glue the second cobweb and then put that in place and get that in. And again, that's going to hang over as well. And then I'll just trim those edges off. Just getting rid of some little excess glue there. My little tweezers are perfect for that. So I'll just trim the little bits off there from the cobweb. And while that's finishing drying, I'm going to add my ghosts. And I thought, oh, 2 ghosts would be perfect. It goes with the theme. And I'll just add the second little ghost there. And then all those the little bits for their eyes, I forgot all about that until I had the card almost done. And then I did color them black and add them in after. So here I'm going over the edges of the ghost with N0 just to give it a bit of a shadow, just to add a little dimension. And then for the rectangle at the bottom, I die cut a crosshatch piece from the Karen Burniston's short rectangles crosshatch. So these aren't like regular just rectangles. They're a little bit like longer, but they're not like a slimline sized. And I thought that filled that space perfectly. So we're going to start on the front of the card now. So for that, I decided to still go with the same background as the inside of the card. And I used the Halloween scene to create a little cemetery. And it comes with the cemetery piece. It comes with the trees. It comes with the bat. And then what I did was used her Circles crosshatch to cut a piece to make a moon. And I also used her Halloween die, sentiment die, to create a Happy Halloween sentiment on the front of the card. Here I'm using black soot just to add a little bit of detail to the light gray cemetery piece. And I'm just going to try and blend that in. And I did add a little bit to the top of the tombstones to give it almost like a bit of a weathered look. And now I'm going to add, I have this really great stencil from Tim Holtz called Moon Mask. And I'm using Pumice Stone Distress Oxide ink to stencil in the moon features on the front of the moon. And then I am going to go around the edges just to give it a almost round look. I really like this stencil. And it comes in 3 different sizes too. So once I clean that up, I'm just going to begin to put my card together. And I'll glue the front piece to the darker gray piece. And this is just a very lightweight cardstock. I think this was a paper pack I got at Michael's a long time ago. I found it in my stash and thought, oh, those colors would be perfect. So I think it was just different colors of gray and maybe some black. I have a lot of paper that I haven't used that I bought years and years ago. And I'm just going to line that up. When I die cut the pieces, I did cut everything to the size of my card, so it would fit perfectly. And I'm not pushing anything down because I want to put some trees in the background and add some things, and then I'll put my craft block on top to press everything down in place and then let it sit. And this Halloween scene, I just think it's so cool. It does come with some pumpkins. It does come with the trees, like I said, and the cemetery. And I'm just going to press that down with the craft block. And then I'm going to add my bat, which I die cut from that sparkly black cardstock. And I'll add that in front of the moon. Now, I will have to trim the edges of the trees that stick over. But that's not a big deal. And I realized that I didn't quite make my background centered, so I'm just going to trim that little hangover bit as well. And then the little bits of the tree. So for the sentiment, I wanted to create a 2-tone variant for the sentiment. But before I do that, I also wanted to add a little detail to the tombstones. So I'm going in with N4. And I'm just adding, like, where the edges of the tombstones would be. And I guess you could write on them if you wanted to, which would be kind of neat. But I always kind of base it. My grandparents are buried in a very old cemetery in a little town called Greenbank here in Ontario. And there are some tombstones from the 1800s, and they are so neat. I mean, you almost can't read the names on them, but they have neat shapes and neat, I just love seeing them because they're so unique compared to what we have nowadays. Very elaborate. So for the sentiment, I'm going in with carved pumpkin and Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink. And I'm just adding those 2 colors together, and then I'm going to go back in with the carved pumpkin and blend it all together. And I'll die cut that out. And if you'd like to know the die cutting machine I use a Spellbinders Platinum machine, which I really like. And I'm just going to glue this down. And then once it's glued in place, I decided that it needed to have a little more dimension or oomph. So I decided to add some Stickles glitter gel in Stardust to just give it some sparkle. Halfway through, though, my bottle got clogged and I had to take a little pin and clean it out. But once you do that, it comes out no problem. While I'm doing this, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I'm sorry that I've been kind of absent. My kids are on summer vacation, and we had just a couple of weeks where we were busy getting ready for back to school, and I just didn't have time to get into my office. So thank you for bearing with me, and thank you for subscribing and enjoying my videos. I really, really appreciate it. So I'm just going to add the front of the card on to the card base. And press that in place. And now we have our finished card. And isn't that awesome? What a great little Halloween card that you could give to just anyone. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Have a great day.